Thank you, Don. That was wonderful. Good afternoon. It is my pleasure, and indeed it is a highlight of my term as president, to welcome you to the installation of Reverend J. Wolin as our installed minister. And you have my thanks and appreciation for choosing to be here today to so honor Reverend Wolin. If you have glanced at your order of service, you will note that we have a busy interactive session planned for today. Again, thank you all for being here. Enjoy. And now please rise in body and or spirit and join us in singing our processional hymn, number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
I was still feeling that hymn. That was great. I wonder what happens next. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. There we go. Okay. Give you another chance. My name is Reverend Ben Atherton Zeman, and my pronouns are he and him. It is my honor to be the minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg on the unceded lands of the Tokabega and Seminole Native Americans. And it is my double honor to be here to light the chalice for the installation of my friend, Reverend J. Wolin. Woo, indeed. The reading is by Gordon McKeeman, and it's called Anyone's Ministry. Ministry is a quality of relationship between and among human beings that beckons forth hidden possibilities, inviting people into deeper, more constant, more reverent relationship with the world and with one another, carrying forward a long heritage of hope and liberation that has dignified and informed the human venture over many centuries, being present with, to, and for others in their terrors and torments, in their grief, misery, and pain, knowing that these feelings are our feelings too. Celebrating the triumphs of the human spirit, the miracles of birth and life, the wonders of devotion and sacrifice, witnessing to life-enhancing values, speaking truth to power, speaking for human dignity and equity, for compassion and aspiration, believing in life and in the presence of death. Excuse me, that's wrong. Believing in life in the presence of death. Struggling for human responsibility against principalities and structures that ignore humaneness and become instruments of death. It is all these and much, much more than all of them, present in the wordless, the unspoken, the ineffable. It is speaking and living the highest we know and living with the knowledge that it is never as deep or as wide or as high as we wish. Wherever there is a meeting that summons us to our better selves, wherever our lostness is found, our fragments are united, our wounds begin healing, our spines stiffen, and our muscles grow strong for the task. There is ministry.
Good afternoon. And what an exciting afternoon this is. And thank you, Reverend Ben. The installation of a minister is supposed to be a rare event. And actually, the last time that we had an installation in this church was 11 years ago. Many of you were probably not around for that experience. The search committee, of which I was the chair, was tasked with the assignment of working with the Unitarian Universalist Association to identify potential candidates to lead our church. Reverend J likes to sign his emails with the phrase, "with a grateful heart." Well, today I am so very grateful. The search committee worked under very challenging conditions. We spent the majority of our time collaborating during a pandemic. Despite the many obstacles, we succeeded in our goal of calling Reverend J. Wolin to be our settled minister, hopefully for another 11 years. We believe that Reverend J checked all of the boxes, and we were delighted when he agreed to serve this church. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our dedicated search committee for their almost 2 years of work and their commitment to this church. Some of them are in the kitchen, so they may not be able to stand, but and some are working the bar, which is a good thing. But those of you who are here, can you please stand up? I'd like to recognize Kathy Brackett. Lisa Ellis, I think she may be out of town. Sharon Howard, I know you're here. Marie Keeney. Marie was our vice chair. That doesn't mean she was in charge of vice. And she also contributed these absolutely beautiful flowers for today's service. So thank you for that as well. I'd also like to recognize Mary Maldolano. I know, way in the back. I believe Bob Mayer is in the back, the very, very back. Bob Mayer. And Ava Whaley. I would also like to thank the installation committee for putting together today's reception and organizing today's service, the front end of it. Jeannie Craig, who's in the kitchen, and again, the wonderful Bob Mayer, Sharon Howard, Mary Maldolano. We could not have done it without them, and there will be a wonderful reception afterwards, and we're just so thankful for good weather. And thanks to all of you who supported our effort and enthusiastically voted during candidate week with what I am going to say was the highest percentage we have ever experienced to call a settled minister. Yes. So thank you. This is a very exciting day for our church, and again, I thank you for being a part of it, and I welcome Reverend Jonathan Kwong, who will have greetings from the Unitarian Universalist Association. Thank you.
Greetings. I'm the Reverend Dr. Jonathan Kwong. I use he or they pronouns. I'm the Ministerial Credentialing Director for our Unitarian Universalist Association. Now, before you thank me for flying all the way in from Boston, I want to share with you that the job posting for my current position actually says, for location, Boston preferred. And well, I actually don't prefer my winter time spent shoveling that white stuff some people call snow. Can I get an amen to that? So last year, I moved to our don't say gay state of Florida from California. And other than the initial culture shock of living in a crimson red state, I'm now proud to call Central Florida my home. In other words, the UUA, our UUA, is closer than you think. So be careful what you do in your congregation. The mission, after all, of our UUA is to equip congregations for health and vitality, to support and train leaders, such as Jay and other colleagues here, to advance UU values in the world. Our UUA is the embodiment of the covenant our congregations make to one another, and it is my privilege to bring you greetings from Kathy McGowan, your primary contact here in the Southern region, and the Reverend Keith Cron, whom Rick and the rest of the search committee are, I'm sure, very familiar with. He brings you greetings as well. He's our transitions director. And all across our association, as you covenant with the Reverend J. Wolin and install him as your settled minister. Our theology and practice is one of interdependence, recognizing that the strength of one congregation is the strength of the whole. Your celebration is our celebration. When you need help or when you have wisdom to share, you can strengthen our association by reaching out and connecting. We will be there for and with you. And as I hinted at earlier, we need the values of Unitarian Universalism now more than ever to counter transphobia and homophobia, as we have witnessed recently at Club Q and more closer to home at Pulse not too long ago, right? We need our progressive values to cast a light of truth whenever fake news abounds, both here in the Sunshine State and beyond. In an age of polarization and division, we need to come together to promote the common good. Can I get an amen to that? To that end, the last thing the world needs right now is another stinking country club masquerading as a religious community. What we need instead is a beloved community that saves lives. The UU Church of Sarasota, you can be that beloved community that sides with love, the one that begins again in love when you fall out of right relationship, and the ones to always strengthen your love for one another, even those we don't wish to understand, much less intend to ever like. Thank you for saying yes, Reverend Jay, to be the spiritual leader of this beloved community, and we wish you continued grace, generosity of spirit, and grit for the greater good. On behalf of all our congregations, I congratulate you and offer my best wishes, prayers, and support for a fruitful shared ministry ahead.
wear you out too early here. I'm Reverend Tom Capo, the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Miami. And I bring you greetings from the east of here. I use the pronouns he, him, and his, and I want to, they've asked me to do the sermon today, but I tend to like to do a little story before doing a sermon, so bear with me. I want to share a little Russian folk tale with you. There was a peasant farmer who set a trap in order to capture an animal for his dinner. She dug a large hole in the path and put leaves and branches over it, and she went away, waiting for the next animal to come along. And in the middle of the night, a fox was trotting along the trail, slipped and fell into the trap. Trapped he was. He fell and he was frantic. He paced back and forth and thought, what can I do to get out of this hole? I have an idea. I have another idea. I have another idea. I have a million ideas. And so it went around and around, and he walked around and around in that little hole, and he had thousands and thousands of great ideas. And just before dawn, a crane was walking along, and he fell in the trap. Now, he fell in the trap, and his wings wouldn't spread out, and he couldn't get out. Well, naturally, the crane was unhappy. But he wasn't ill-prepared. He looked around, he thought for a moment, and then he began to peck the ground. And the fox said, What are you going to do? I got all kinds of ideas. I'm going to get out of here in just a minute. And the crane said, Well, I just got one good idea, and I'm going to work on that. And so he continued to peck at the ground and dug a little hole, and then he laid down in the hole and stuck his feet straight up. And the fox looked at him and thought, man, that is ridiculous. I've got more ideas than he has, and I'm going to get out of this hole, and he's just laying upside down with his feet up in the air. Well, the crane barely moved. Looked slumped over like, And the peasant came back and opened up the hole to see what was inside. And he saw the crane. And he said, Fox, what have you done? You've eaten my crane. And he grabbed that fox, chased it around, and he finally got it. And while he was doing all that, wrestling with the fox, the crane stood up, climbed out of the hole, and flew away. Needless to say, the fox did not end up as well. So, one good idea made a difference for that crane, and 1,000 good ideas didn't help the fox one bit. So as you know, Jay here came to ministry later in his life. He had one good idea. Become a Unitarian Universalist minister. And I have to say that I was happy to be part of his early ministry. You see, I was his mentor when he first came into ministry, when he started at the Quad Cities Church. And as a matter of fact, I was at his installation then as well, except I didn't do the sermon. I did the charge to the minister. Well, I'm so happy to be part of his installation. He has He has grown, and I was there in his formation in those first 3 years, and it was such a joy to see him come into his own as a Unitarian Universalist minister. Now, I have to say that doing these installation services, and I've done a few, I've been part of a few, I often wondered, why is there a sermon part of these? I mean, you got all kinds of things you need to do today. You got the installation, you got, laying on of hands. I don't know if you're doing that. No, you're not doing that. Anyway, there's a lot of things you're going to be doing here today. And charge to the minister, charge to the congregation. So why a sermon? Well, I'm guessing that you know why there's going to be a sermon. You've all read the installation manual, right? Everybody's read. Jay, you haven't had them all read the installation manual? No, okay. Well, let me tell you what it says, just so you have an idea what I'm supposed to do anyway. So it says, most UU clergy share an understanding that the sermon speaks to the larger living tradition and points toward a relevant, stirring, redemptive, resilient Unitarian Universalism. The sermon casts a vision for where our ministry must go. Well, it's a lot to ask of me anyway. So I wonder, do you have a vision of where your ministry, not just minister, but ministry is going? Having a vision is what beckons us forward. A vision sets a foundation for the future of the church and for Unitarian Universalism. A vision is not just for who you are today, it's for who comes after you in this congregation and in Unitarian Universalism. You create a vision for the next generation of Unitarian Universalists. Let that sink in a moment. An articulated vision sets the future not just for this church, but for all of Unitarian Universalism. We're going through some changes in Unitarian Universalism right now. And we will go through changes as new generations come forward in leadership in this congregation and throughout our denomination. And my friends, that's going to push us out of our comfort zones, out of our normal way of doing things as Unitarian Universalists. It will increase the amplitude of our actions. The vision that you create will provide a focus, not on 1,000 good ideas, but on one good idea. Because you don't want to be like the crane. You don't want to be like the fox. You want to be like the crane. You want to have one good idea for the future of Unitarian Universalism and for this congregation. It's easy. Unitarian Universalists like to be like the fox. We like lots of ideas. We like to think things through. We have plenty of ways to do things. But we usually do the same old thing. We like to study. We like to, learn about all kinds of causes. In my congregation, we have we call it Decentering Whiteness Book Club. We read, and we have had many indigenous people come in and teach us to death about the struggles that they are going through. Then the question is, are we just learning? Or are we need to be doing to make a difference? So I don't know if you have one good idea here. I can't, it's the first time I met you guys, so. But I find it so helpful for us to have a focus, to think about who we're going to be as a congregation, how you're going to be as a congregation, and who we're going to be as Unitarian Universalists into the future. Our congregational call is to be the prophetic church, to create a vision reflective of our changing world and this evolving Unitarian Universalist faith. Because Unitarian Universalism is not a static faith. We are not the 7 principles and the 6 sources. We are not, as somebody said earlier, a social justice club. We are not a community in which you can believe whatever you want without engaging in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We are the love church. And we harness the capacity and flexibility and radical power of love to engage a world that is constantly changing, that is so challenging right now. Unitarian Universalism understands that personal and congregational evolution is needed for this faith to be vibrant, relevant, and prophetic, to be a living faith. We are a faith movement that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Does that describe this congregation? Does this describe you as a person? One vision, one good idea that will beckon many Unitarian Universalists forward. What would that be for you? Well, I can tell you from my congregation what we did. We, after much discernment and much discussion and much Zoom time, I'm sorry, it was just, we had to. We decided that we were going to have a focus of decentering whiteness in our congregation. That was going to be the one good idea that would drive us forward. Making every effort within the congregation and in our lives to more intentionally and consciously deal with living in a white supremacist culture. A culture that we are immersed here in the United States. So we made this a priority. We looked at everything, how we govern, how we worship, how we are in relationship with one another. Decentering whiteness shapes our priorities for social justice, for our committees, for every part of the congregation. And so what does that look like? And how do we measure our actions? Well, before I go more deeply into that, I just want to emphasize or give you a little caveat that what we did and how we came to this decision is ours and was our process within our context as a congregation. That may be very different for this congregation. Even if you chose that as your focus, it would look completely different here. The one idea that the crane had was only useful for the crane. It would not have worked for the fox. So as I share about what we did, think about how you might decenter whiteness if that is what you decide will be your vision. So first we looked at the characteristics of a white supremacist culture. At Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Miami, we determined that the board structure and the board decision-making style was based in that white supremacist culture. And so when we looked at things like a board president or a board chair or vice president, other officers, we decided that structure was problematic for our community. And we decided to change. Another issue was decision-making. It was not collaborative, nor was the board in regular communication with and working with the rest of the congregation. The result was that decisions were made sometimes that didn't really represent the feelings and values of the members of the congregation. So one thing Unitarian Universalist congregation, we call it UU Miami, I'm just going to do that, it's easier, decided to do was to evolve an equitable board structure. Every board member has the same power. Every board member has a portfolio that dovetails with their strengths and passions. Board meetings are run by each member in rotation. The board has increased communication with the members of the congregation. They've also set aside time, specific times, for just conversations between the board and the congregation and the board and the staff. Just to talk. Just to, talk about what their vision is for the future of the congregation, what their priorities are, why they are part of the congregation, to really understand these things. All these initiatives are based on decentering whiteness. And UU Miami discerned that this one good idea about decentering whiteness would help them embody who they want to be as a congregation and I emphasize this, as individuals and in their lives. So what might be the one good idea for Sarasota? Been thinking about that? Because I know you have a new minister now and you might be thinking, where are we headed? What are we going to be doing? Well, I will tell you this. I notice that your congregation is a little older. Now, that's not to say that that's not true in other Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country. It is something we need to be aware of. And perhaps one good idea, maybe, might be finding ways to be more welcoming to people who aren't old, white, younger people, families, children, people of color, LGBTQ people. What would that look like? What would have to change here for that to happen? And again, I don't know if that's the idea you all want, but it is one idea, hopefully not one of thousands of ideas, but one idea. What systems would need to change? What preconceived ideas might need to be put to bed? What changes might you as an individual need to change to embody that kind of vision? Well, I guess if you were to head that direction, you need to ask yourself some questions. Are you willing to make that change? For instance, Jay asked me to come, so I looked at your website, I noticed, looked at your calendar, and I thought, well, that's really interesting. Your social justice meetings, your membership meetings, your finance meetings, your men's and women's group meetings, all during the day, during the week. I'd never seen that in another Unitarian Universalist congregation anywhere in the country. I just wondered. And I also wondered about the men's and women's group. It's sort of binary. Who's invited to them? People who identify as male or female? What about people who are non-binary? Is there a place for them? What do you offer for mutual support and sharing of experiences? What about people of color? Is there a place for them here? A group for them to meet? Now, you might say, and it's probably so, there aren't a lot of people here who come that are younger or people of color or maybe LGBTQ, I don't know. But does that mean that you don't hold a space open for them? All good questions. I don't have the answers, by the way. You have the answers. But I want to let you in on a secret. The Unitarian Universalism of the future will be unlike the Unitarian Universalism of today. And how are Unitarian Universalists, how is this congregation preparing for that? Don't think in terms of being perfect in trying to adapt to the change or open a space for change. Think in terms of a vision built on the priorities and issues that we were dealing with as Unitarian Universalists. A vision that is not blind to the cultural influences that we face in this country, in our world. Each congregation, each of our Unitarian Universalist congregation must ask, who do we want to be as a congregation and as Unitarian Universalists? And from that question, discern one good idea that gets them started on that path, to embody that one good idea, to not just be prepared for change, but to welcome it with open arms, an open heart, and an open mind. With your new minister here, you have the opportunity to reset the system. Just don't get caught up in too many ideas. Find one that works for this congregation, one that enriches Unitarian Universalism, one idea that will make a difference to you personally, to this congregation, to your community, maybe this country and this world. One good idea that will show the world that Unitarian Universalists radically love the world. So if anyone asks you from this congregation or in the community, if anybody asks you ever what the Unitarian Universalist Congregation Church of Sarasota does best, you can tell them with one good idea that we say yes to love. Amen.
Is a journey between birth and death. Then every step we take matters with every breath. And each path we follow leads us somewhere or to someone to walk beside. We're on holy ground, right where we are. We're on holy ground. Under this shining star, we're on holy ground. When we reach for each other with our hearts, we're on holy ground.
If we are all pilgrims between here and there, and everyone matters, that's what we share, then no one's a stranger, just a brother or a sister we didn't know. We're on holy
ground, right where we are. We're on holy ground, under the shining star. We're on holy ground. When we reach for each other with our hearts, we're on holy ground. If there is a heaven beyond earth and sky. It's made of moments here that matter with you and I. There's no destination more full of grace than this place we meet again. We're on holy ground, right where we are. We're on holy ground, under the shining star. We're on holy ground, when we reach for each other with our hearts. We're on holy ground, we're on holy ground, we're on holy ground.
This is the moment you've been waiting for.
Well, Jay, before we start this solemn occasion, and it must be solemn because I'm wearing a tie on this very hot day. And I went to my tie collection, which is the same as it was when I retired 16 years ago. And I thought, are wide ties in or are thin ties in? But I just want to say that since you've been here in August, it's been a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you.
And I remember installation week, and we had the vote, and as Rick said, it was a very, very positive response. And you were waiting in the office, and I went in and said, we had this great response, told you what it was. And we came out into the courtyard, and we handed Jay a mic. And do you remember what you said?
Not a clue, no.
Jay held that mic, and he looked out over the crowd that had gathered, and he said, I will win over the rest of you. And he has. And in my estimation, you have won us all over.
Thank you.
And it's really been a pleasure working with you,
Thank
sir.
you, and likewise.
We gather today to install the Reverend J. Wolin as the 10th settled minister of this church, and in a spirit of mutuality to rededicate ourselves to the church and the values of this religious tradition of which we are a part. Reverend Wolin, with this call to our congregation, we offer you a free pulpit from which to preach as you mind, your conscience and your heart may lead you. We have called you to live among us, sharing our hopes and our challenges, our aspirations and setbacks, offering us your insights and your understanding. Together, we endeavor to build a relationship based on mutual respect and reverence. Before the act of installation, following an ancient custom, the members and friends of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota ask you the following questions, and will you, the congregation, please follow along in the words in yellow. As our master, will you speak to us of values and justice and challenge us to respond to the needs that surround us in our lives and in our community, despite the risks of favor, fortune, and position?
I accept the prophetic call of ministry.
Will you name our children, marry us to those whom we love, and mourn with us our dead?
I accept the priestly call of ministry.
Will you be a learner with us and share with us what you have discovered?
I accept the teaching call of ministry.
Will you accept our failures, hear our revelations, offer us counsel, strive to cultivate our potential, and help facilitate the fulfillment of our talents.
I accept the pastoral and healing calls of ministry.
Will you set aside time necessary to be yourself apart from the demands of the congregation, that you may live with integrity and keep your life balanced and whole?
I accept the need to strive for balance in my life.
As our minister, will you remain true to yourself, true to us, and true to that vision of what we can become?
With your help, I will. And now in turn, I ask these questions of you. As a congregation, will you struggle with questions of values and justice and the challenge to respond to the needs that surround you in your lives and in our community, despite the risks of favor, fortune, and position?
We accept our part in the prophetic ministry.
Will you rejoice in celebrations of heritage, hope, and life, attending to those who name their children, marry their loved ones, and mourn their death?
We accept our part in the priestly ministry.
Will you be learners with me and share with me what you discover?
We accept our part in the teaching ministry.
Will you accept one another's failures, hear each other's revelations, nurture one another with counsel, strive to cultivate each other's potential, and help facilitate the fulfillment of each other's talents?
We accept our part in the healing and pastoral ministry.
Will you set aside time necessary to be yourself, that you may live with integrity and keep your lives balanced and whole?
We accept the need to strive for balance in our lives.
Will you remain true to yourselves, true to our community, and true to that vision of what we can become?
With your help, we will. If you, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Sarasota, are prepared to accept the responsibilities of shared ministry with Reverend J. Wolin, please rise in body and/or spirit, along with all of our friends and guests, including children and youth, and say with me, "We, the people of the Church of Sarasota, do hereby install you, Reverend J. Wolin, as our settled minister. With joy in our hearts and hope for our future, we welcome you among us. We invite you into this congregation's tradition of pastoral and prophetic ministry, asking that you honor this tradition even as you transform it with your unique gifts and talents. We invite you into our lives to work with us in a spirit of mutual cooperation, trust, love, and forgiveness, so that together we might create a beloved community of compassion.
I accept your call with joy, gratitude, humility, and a deep sense of responsibility. I freely and enthusiastically pledge myself to serve as your minister, using all the compassion, intelligence, energy, hope, and love that I possess. I covenant with the people of this church, the staff, and everyone gathered here this evening to the ongoing service of this church and its ministry. Thank you. Yeah.
When I am down and oh, my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. Stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
Wow. I'm the Reverend Dee Graham, and I'm a member of this congregation. I'm so grateful, Jake. Please come stand with me. I know that we don't often pray together in this church, but I ask you to indulge us today and take a deep breath and let us just have this moment of prayerful time. Holy love, we offer gratitude for Jay and for this opportunity for our shared ministry. May he find great joy and profound courage as he takes on the spiritual leadership of our congregation. May our hearts open to this partnership of love as we join with Jay in loving our church and our whole community into justice, into compassion, into spiritual wholeness, and into whatever this ministry must take us to. Blessed be. Shalom. Amen.
Good afternoon. I'm the Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw, and I am delighted to serve our congregation in Venice, Florida. We bring you greetings from Yukov today. I was so excited when Jay asked me to do the offering because I love talking about the joy that comes with generosity and because I'm a smart aleck. As is our tradition, today's offering will go to support the Living Tradition Fund. Some of you may know what that is, but for those of you who don't, it provides 3 types of support for ministry. It provides need-based scholarships for theological students that have completed a full year, new minister assistance to reduce the debt of going to school, and emergency assistance to religious professionals. It's a wonderful fund, and I cannot say enough how much good it does. If you're writing a check, please put Living Tradition Fund on the memo line. Today's offering words are offered with levity because generosity is a sacred value and because giving should never hurt. I may not be able to make it not hurt, but at least I can make you grin a bit. A Unitarian Universalist found himself stranded on a desert island, and with him was only one other man. And the other man was running around and shrieking, "We're doomed, we're doomed. What are we going to do?" "No worries," the UU said, putting on his sunglasses. "My minister will find me." "What do you mean your minister will find you?" the other man shouted. "What's wrong with you? We're all alone. No one knows we're here." "Oh, don't worry," the UU said, calmly putting on sunscreen. "My minister will find us." "How can you be so calm?" the other man shouted. "I'm an avid churchgoer, but what does that have to do with being lost on a desert island?" "Oh, don't worry," the UU said. "I'm a devout churchgoer too, but I pledge $2 million a year. And brother, I guarantee you, my minister will find me." I am so delighted that you have found a minister who will always come to find you, no matter how much you give.
How's that? Is that good? Yeah. Okay. So I just want to say, you won't remember a thing that I say, but in your program, you have the act of installation, and I'm going to encourage you all to take it home and read it from time to time, because you have made some wonderful pledges to one another. So I'm Reverend Marni Harmony, happily retired in Orlando. I trust that most of you know that Jay was a beloved member of our Orlando congregation. And I believe that it was sitting in my office that I first learned that Jay was thinking about ministry. And I enthusiastically, I think I did, I hope I did, enthusiastically encouraged him. And I hope that I shared with him a favorite quote of mine from a book about ministry, and I will share it here. Now, they use the term pastor, but I think we can all live with that for a minute. Churches do not call a pastor, not at first. They hire a knotted tangle of messianic, erotic, parental wishes and hopes, dropped crazy quilt fashion on the shoulders of one finite, limited individual. There will be times when you will simply forget that he is one finite and limited individual who can't do everything brilliantly all the time. Can you? Did I misspeak already? So I want to start my charge to you by asking you simply to temper your expectations. Let Jay be as imperfectly human as you are and as I am, and don't ask him to be anything else. Learn from his imperfect humanness. He's doing that all the time. While he's learned a lot, he's going to keep on learning with you. Perfect folks have little to learn. And we are not perfect, and neither is the congregation. We Unitarian Universalists covenant to come together and live together through all the messiness and complexity and aggravating details of creating relationship and trying to get along so that the work of the church moves life forward in service to each and in service to the world. And that's my simple first charge. Remember, he's human. My second charge, honor this as a new chapter in the congregation's life and be open to change. New music, new people, lots of new people, new ways of being together. Unitarian Universalism, like so much else, has changed in many, many ways, certainly ways during the pandemic, and we can't say post-pandemic yet, but all the new stuff that's happening. Leave Jay free to release the full range of his pastoral imagination so that he can work with you to experiment and improvise while envisioning what might lie beyond current realities. Take seriously the need to be accountable to one another and to our faith tradition. And that means moving forward rather than always comfortably staying in place. I understand that leaning into discomfort can make you feel vulnerable, and that change can be risky when we don't know what's coming next. So be curious. Be curious. I wonder what's going to happen. Try to learn to have fun with that not knowing place, and take seriously your own part in the congregation's ministry. And my last charge has to do with trust. Go for trust here with Jay. He is a supremely trustworthy individual. Talk to him. Tell him what you're thinking. Tell him what you're feeling. Never make Jay the focal point of your reactions and feelings about your church. Make the church and your allegiance to it your primary focus. There are bound to be setbacks, misunderstandings, mistakes. We always make mistakes when we're learning. Trust and go on and rebuild. Don't waste the precious time you have together on pettiness. In summary, temper your expectations. Use Jay well. That's why he's here and why he chose to be here with you. Trust. Tell him what you need. Trust that he'll do his best to meet your need. But don't make him wrong if he can't fill your need. Offer him as much compassion as you would any member. I trust you offer compassion to each other. That was an assumption. Be open to change. Challenge the whole ministry of the congregation by real questions, the ones that make a difference in how we live. Pledge your own involvement and commitment in helping to create the beloved community. Love your church. Love yourselves. And for Pete's sake, get along. Researchers who've been assessing clergy well-being are concerned that the toll that congregational conflicts are taking on ordained leaders these days. Please learn to get along. We are all dealing with so much grief these days, so much loss, from people to species, habitats. Share the grief openly and let humor help you through it. I'm giving Jay a little memento to help him when he needs to remember laughter. And I encourage him to pull it out when necessary, maybe even in board meetings. Finally, consider yourselves blessed to have an extraordinarily fine minister. Journey together and be the beloved community that makes each of you proud. May your travels together take you toward radically inclusive justice, love, and spiritual wholeness.
So for those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Brock Leach. I'm a member of the church. I'm also a longtime community minister of the church, and I'm just delighted to be here with you all today. Jay and I are like the double helix of DNA. Now, go with me on this for a minute. Prior to Jay's arrival here in August, we had never actually worked together in ministry, but we have been spiraling through ministry, connected at various parts, but we have not actually intersected until right now. So, for starters, both of us had careers in business. Mine was corporate, Jay was a CPA. We had an appreciation for some of the disciplines of business, but we also had an appreciation for the limitations of those disciplines. Both of us can say we had first careers that we did well and that we enjoyed. Maybe what was missing was what mattered in both cases. It could have been more. we both were lay members in UU churches in Florida. Orlando, me here, how great is that? And both of us we discovered a passion for pastoral care, and we both decided we wanted to be resident chaplains in a major safety net hospital. And the trick with that was we wanted to make the residency our internship. But, the UUA, not all the stars aligned to make that easy to do. And fortunately, the great people in the Tampa church said, we can help you with that. And so we scheduled an internship, which was full-time in a hospital as a chaplain and part-time in a church. It's a lot of work. It was a fantastic experience. But I tell you this because the combined chaplain and church experience taught me a very different definition of ministry than I had before. I learned that it is not just about shepherding a particular flock or being an expert in matters religious or being a compelling Sunday speaker, although all those things are good. I learned that at its heart, ministry is about helping people uncover their own sense of purpose and meaning so they can meet the challenges and seize the opportunities that life presents. It's about helping them to find their own resources to do that. In other words, it's about unlocking our deeper human potential as individuals and our wider collective potential to love and create in the world. All the day-to-day activities of congregational life are important, but and sometimes in that mix we can lose sight of those. But I suspect that deeper and wider understanding of ministry is exactly what the search committee saw in Reverend J. And it goes to the heart of my charge to you in your ministry among us. It has 3 connected parts. First, I charge you to continue to recognize that your ministry goes beyond the walls of the church. The larger Sarasota community needs the saving message of Unitarian Universalism, especially right now, and it needs our example of what justice and beloved community look like. I know that's an easy charge for you because it's in your DNA. It's been throughout your history as a minister, and we already see that in your ministry here. Second, and related, I charge you to find the courage to initiate and lead the change that we all need to make. Change in ourselves, change in the congregation, the change we heard about in our sermon. Change is by definition challenging, it's hard. It requires building enough trust to experiment and fail and learn and try again, all in the company of others. And it requires tapping the deep reservoirs of experience and creativity of the whole collected community and embarking on a learning journey together. You have all the clarity, the candor, the trustworthiness, as Marni said, the emotional intelligence, the spiritual grounding to guide us on that journey. And we need your courage. I think the most proud moment I've had as a member of this church was when the board decided to install the Remembrance Project lynching memorial. And one of the reasons that happened was because of your personal statement of courage that helped us overcome our fears. We need that, and we love it. Finally, and most importantly, I'm going to repeat a theme you've heard. I'm going to charge you to share the burden. I know that being a senior minister in a church means that almost everything lands on your doorstep. Being the single minister in a large church makes that even more likely. And, you know, unlocking our deeper individual and collective potential is no small thing. So I encourage you to entrust more of this shared ministry to the rest of us. Not even you, not even with your abundance of talent, can provide all the leadership that's required or connect all the dots from moment to make it all happen. You need to do the self-care required to give us your best. You need to take needed breaks. You need to delegate some tasks. You need to entrust others to carry key projects forward. We need your wider vision for the church, and we need your courage in leading change, but we need you to apply yourself in ways that actually nourish your spirit. We have a wealth of talent in our members and in our staff. I think you'll find they're ready to serve in new and different ways. With your example of broader vision, your courage, your example of what it means to share the burden of leadership, we will continue to be a vital congregation where people find their calling and fulfill it together, where love is abundant and extends across all those divides that separate us, one that serves as a beacon to this whole Sarasota community. And your minister, my friend, will surely bless us. I think it's up to you to bring us home.
I guess I'm next. Okay. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to have fun with this thing. I am. Oh, boy. Okay, that's enough. Maybe it's never enough. Well, there's so many people I just want to thank for making this afternoon possible. First, I just want to thank the search committee for having the faith to choose me as your candidate. I want to thank all the members who voted for me to be your settled minister last May, and even those who didn't. I want to thank all the participants who have energized our shared ministry, even in my initial time here. It's just really just so exciting to see the energy at the church here. I also want to thank the staff, because they make everything that happens here just appear seamless, and they really do a lot of the work to make it all happen. I want to thank the board for their strong support. I want to thank my Unitarian Universalist colleagues for their support of my ministry. A bunch of us get together every month, and it eases things. I feel like I've won an Academy Award. I'm doing an Academy Award. Except that I get to win that award every single day because I do what I love to do. And so lastly, I want to thank my family who 20 years or so ago, when I shared my vision with them to become a minister, they didn't flinch. They may have had some questions and had some thoughts, but they didn't flinch. And I think because I was focused, right? You said one great idea. I was focused on what I knew I needed to do with my life. And I think a person or a congregation should always focus on their values and vision, even though the journey is not always linear or clear. Until I was about 5 years old, talking about vision made me think about this story. I had a very unique talent. I could have my eyeballs go in every different direction, even like up into my head, so you could only see the whites of my eyes. And my brother is here, so he could confirm that for you. But after one too many demonstrations of this at the dinner table, and with kindergarten looming, my parents decided I need to get an operation to strengthen the muscles in my eyes. Yeah, so I was about just before I was 5 years old. I had an eye operation. I remember clearly the moment I woke up, as clear as it was yesterday, when I woke up from that operation. Everything was dark. I was somewhat disoriented. And when they slowly pulled the patches off my eyes, the light was blinding at first and then blurry. And then slowly I could make out shapes, but slowly clarity came back to my vision. Sort of like my first 6 months here. I just have to say that. And although the operation was a success, it permanently left me with no depth perception. Literally, I have monocular vision. And I have blamed this, of course, for my high golf scores for the rest of my life since then. But somehow, though, over time, my brain adapted to the lack of depth perception, and I moved forward with my life. Although my wife Jen does get a little nervous when I get really close to the car in front of me without braking, but she is there to help me with that. See, we all help each other in life. That's one message. But whenever there is a change or a new beginning, just like waking up from my eye surgery, right? The way forward may seem a little bit blurry. And over time, we focus our vision, we adapt to the changed landscape with clarity, and we move forward. And we must always remember who we are and what we are capable of. And we are capable of making a difference. We are in making a difference in our lives and in the lives of our community. And I believe in the power of good and the power of love, and I believe it is within every human being, waiting to be awakened, waiting to be stirred, waiting to be released. Just like you're waiting to be released from this service and eat food. So let us strengthen our muscles of our hearts, our mind, our vision. Let us focus on the purpose of our ministry, and then let us move forward with an active and compassionate vision based on love. May it be so. I thank you all so much for your presence here tonight. After I extinguish the chalice, the clergy will be recessing as we sing our closing hymn. So please join me in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame. Oh, okay. The chalice in our hearts, okay? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you.